Welcome, everyone, to episode 16 of the StarCraft 2 Weekly Line Live. I'm your host, Ace, and today I'm joined by my good friend Brock, who's a Protoss player with a peak MMR of Masters 2, and a very special guest, Hungarian Pro and Protoss player Nihed. Say hello to everyone,
Hello,
Nihed, and if you have any socials you'd like to plug, any channels you'd like to plug, let us know.
hello guys. I'm Nihed, and my only social right now is like my Twitch channel, which is Nihed TV/Twitch. That's my only social right now.
All right. I'll be sure to link that in the description as well if people want to check you out. All right, so I set this up because I always enjoy open and honest conversations about balance, and I feel like it's just a little bit hard to find sometimes in the StarCraft 2 community. So I hope to do my small part to change that with the show. If you enjoy, please give a like or subscribe. And this week, I want to try to focus on the Protoss perspective, because I feel like we've had a lot of Terran and Zerg guests on the show, and I'm Zerg, and I want to try to even things out with the Protoss side of things a little bit more. So we've got Nihed on there to help with that, and also Brock here as well, who I've known for many years. So I'm hoping that we'll get some good discussion here. So I think we want to start with, this is probably like the main thing that Protoss is probably thinking about, would be my guess, would be that, it feels like Zerg and Terran got buffs to their core economy, and Protoss got a buff to only their gateway production, which is a little bit of a mismatch there. And it also feels like we slowed down the game and then we sped up the game for 2 of the 3 races, but we didn't really speed it up for Protoss, just the gateway production, and only when you're not using warpgate. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on this, Nihed, and how you feel about this.
I feel similar that like the Protoss didn't got that much change for the economy. In fact, I think it's the least favored out of economy from the 3 races, because the Terran just got changed with the 300cc. The Zerg has the larva still up in 9.8 seconds, if I believe.
I think it's
Protoss,
9.9. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
9.9. And then Protoss just has a chrono boost in the beginning, which he cannot really, the Protoss cannot really use. We need to wait like 7 or 8 seconds, depending on the split of the workers, to use the first chrono. And in most of the build orders, you cannot even use as soon as possible you have the second chrono, because you need to scout and wait for your opponent. Or depending on what kind of build orders are you choosing. So then your economy is much more delayed compared to the other 2 races, I feel like.
Interesting. Could you expand on that last part a little bit? Like, depending on what you scout from your opponent? What do you mean? Can you give like an example?
For example, if you take PVZ, Protoss versus Zerg, if you scout with your probe, if you pylon block or gateway scout, you need to wait till your probes gets to the Zerg natural, and then you can use chrono boost. Because if you waste your chrono boost on probe production, and the Zerg, for example, does a 10 or an 8 pool,
yeah.
you will not have enough energy to chrono boost a Zealot. And then you need to cut your workers as well to have enough production to wall it off, because unfortunately with this small amount of worker count you cannot take it as a lightweight that the Zerg going for an aggression build, for example a 10 pool, even a drone pool.
Yeah.
I have to stop around 17 workers, what I try to engineer, and then I cannot use chrono boost only once.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. I'm glad I asked, yeah, because that totally makes a lot of sense, and I would not have thought of that. That's definitely like a unique Protoss experience kind of thing, where you just have to have experience with the race to know that kind of stuff.
In PvP, I feel like it depending on what you're doing. If you are doing 2-gate builds, you need to save your secondary chrono boost as well. For scouting, if your opponent is doing a 1-gate expand, or sort of a 2-gate with a proxy pylon. But that's about it. You need to save for your cybernetic score, because right now, since they changed the warpgate mechanic, you need to save it to get pump out that upgrade as fast as possible to either warp him down or like get your units as quick as possible to your natural. And in Protoss versus Terran, I feel like I try to like save, but in many cases I feel like it's better to save till you scout, because since the CC change, I felt that many Terrans are trying out this CC first into free Rex, which is kind of unique. I don't think we ever had anything like that before, so it's like new for me to try out like save the chrono boost so I can get a fuzz a lot on the opposite side of the map while proxying a Stargate to punish this very greedy build.
Right. Yeah, because CC first, like in PvT, I feel like I haven't seen that like ever. I don't know, I'm not a PvT expert.
I don't think there was ever a time when it should be possible for Terran to have a CC first against Protoss in this meta, I feel like.
Yeah. I mean, that just, like, from a totally, you know, I'm a Zerg player, so it's a little bit outside perspective, and that just feels unnatural to me, because it feels to me like Terran and Protoss, both races kind of have a little bit more of their strength focused into, like, army and tech than it is in economy, like how Zerg is. You know, Zerg is mostly eco-focused, right? So it feels like when you have the two races who are more army and tech focused, like they should be actively fighting each other a lot in the early and mid game. So it would feel really weird if one of those races is able to just fast expand and not get punished. Interesting.
I completely agree, but at the same time, I many times noticed that, for example, the Terran is much more like an aggression race. And I noticed that in the ladder or tournaments that, like, for example, in the last patch, we had some build orders like 3-1-0, which is translates to 3 barracks, 1 factory, and they usually like clump up much more bio with couple of factory units and try to like all in you. But I noticed that some of them now switch to like go into this kind of push, even maybe contain you or like get a poke on your third base and then immediately place down a CC, which kind of silly for me, because if you are going for an all-in, I don't think you should be able to afford a quick third CC.
Yeah. I mean, that's something I generally think is a complaint that all three races have. Like, whenever there's a race who can do an all-in and then just, like, slap a base down behind it, like, people tend to not like that. That it usually is a problem. I've noticed that pattern. Alright, speaking of build orders, what do we think about, because you were kind of mentioning that it feels like a lot of build orders have been lost, and then also at the same time it's like, it feels like there's new build orders being formed, but they're still maybe not quite there yet. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on that, because we've talked a lot about on the show previously about like the potential strength of the new fast gates, or whatever we want to call them. You know, it feels like they could be really strong, but it feels like there's going to be a lot of work required in like the build order crafting department before we really can see the strength of that. And in the meantime, Protoss has just like lost a ton of builds. I'm curious how you feel about that.
I feel that as a Protoss player, like I lost so much build orders, like a patch after patch. For an example, in PvZ, I feel like nowadays you can only go sort of like a sky toss variation of build order. But since they changed the Colossus, I've been like trying to experiment a little bit. Had a small success, but I don't think we are kind of there. That I'm going with a Colossus bust from 3 or 4 bases. But still, the Colossus has, it's like the core problem against Zerg is that if they get a Viper, the unit becomes kind of less important for you the longer the game goes on. In PvT, I feel like Protoss suffered the most amount of build order losses since they changed the economy with this 300 CC. Like I feel in this meta, I cannot really go any Stargate build at all. Like if
Really?
I go Stargate build, I'm placing myself behind. because if the Terran scouts the Stargate with a Reaper or anything like that, they can just get a Cyclone, get a fast third CC, or they can get a Cyclone and then just bust me completely, and I don't have enough units. With Stargate, I feel like I'm already way behind. Unless I'm like all in from one base, but that doesn't really change anything. Robo builds sometimes come out, but I don't think they are there. We only have something like a Twilight open, and then from there we go either charge or blink.
Yeah. I was kind of thinking about this a lot because like the Robo Twilight Prism builds have always been something that is very, you know, unique Protoss, and we just don't see any of those anymore. And I don't know, it's interesting because I definitely heard from a few random players, like I think Groovy was saying this when we had him on the show, and he's GM, and he was saying that like he just pays the tax and like doesn't even notice, and his timing is like not really affected by it. And that just seems crazy to me. It's like, I don't know, like I want to believe him because I don't like Protoss and I'm biased. But at the same time, it's like I can't just ignore, like, you know, 25 gas is 25 gas. You know, like gas is not free. Gas is very limited in StarCraft. You know, it has a very direct impact on how quickly you can get into your late game tech. So requiring an additional gas cost for anything, like, that's gonna hurt you. So it seems crazy to me to suggest that like it has no effect. So I don't know. I think it's interesting because you know, we haven't been seeing those builds at all anymore, and I don't know. It feels like it's probably the case that they're probably still somewhat viable, or maybe some of them are, but like they're nowhere near as good. And for, you know, when you get up at the high level, it's like you're asking yourself, you know, why would I accept like a, you know, 2 or 3% less win rate on my strategy? Like, why would I do that strategy rather than going for the optimal strat, right? I don't know. I'm struggling to explain my thoughts here, but that's sort of where I'm coming from on this.
I kind of understand, and for that exclusive reason, I'm not even doing wargates. I feel like they like touched the wrong side of the gateway by buffing it to 60%. Like we went back a circle back in 28 years. Like we are back to Brood War, that I'm only using the gateways.
Yeah.
Like in my perspective, I rather not use the warp gates because like there is the counter argument that, oh, you can warp in anywhere and stuff, you can defend drops much better. But with the normal gateways, with the warp gate upgrade, I feel like you can stop on much less gateways, and the timings are so different. Like for an example, a Zealot with a warp gate upgrade is 14 seconds. The Stalker is the same, and the Sentry I think even less, like 11 seconds or something. With one Chrono Boost, I can pump out 2 units, and even it touches the 3rd unit. So like, why should I pay for something which has more cooldown? And in Defender advantage case, I think it's even better to have gateways instead of warp gates.
Interesting.
The only exception I feel like is when I'm like going into a very aggro push from 2 base and I need to have some immediate reinforcement.
Yeah. I've also been hearing people say like, you know, it makes sense to only transform your gateways after you're maxed out, if you think about it in a way. Because it's like, at that point, you're already banking money and you're maxed out, so it's like you don't really benefit from the production speed anymore. And at that point, it makes sense to like unlock the ability to warp in everywhere. But until that point, it's like, why would you not just go for the faster production speed? Because then you have to invest less money in production. And also, you know, I've talked about this a couple times before, but like, it still feels weird to me, like, the fact that we're going back to Brood War, like you said, because, you know, I've been thinking about this a lot, and it's like, why does it feel so bizarre to me to see Protoss producing out of gateways like this? Because in Brood War, that's how it worked. So that should feel normal to me. Like my introduction to StarCraft was with Brood War. So that should feel normal to me, but it doesn't. Because I think like the second we all saw Warp in StarCraft 2, we all just said, that's awesome, that's Protoss, you know? And like that's just linked to the Protoss identity now. I don't know. That's how it feels for me anyway.
I have to agree on that. Like, it's very hard to adjust myself to like play like a Brood War type of style. That I'm having less gates instead of the optimal gate count for each base. Instead, I'm like stuck on a much lower. Many times I'm seeing myself that I'm producing from 4 gates on 3 base, because like the stuff comes out so fast that I cannot afford to go like 6 or even 8.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm honestly contemplating bringing up a replay that I have right now. Brock knows what replay I'm talking about because I showed it to him last night. But so I played a couple games against Protoss players who did this thing where they went for like a 3-base timing on like 4 gateways, and they just made like nothing but stalkers on 4 gateways. And when I face it, I'm like, what am I supposed to do against this? It's kind of crazy. And then I'll look at like the graphs at the end of the game, and I'm like, okay, I'm equal or ahead on economy. I'm ahead in upgrades, and his army value is just like, it's like twice mine. It's like, how? You know, that feels crazy to me. But I don't know. It's still like such a new mechanic that I have a hard time just saying like it's broken right now. Just it feels really strong, and we're not really seeing a lot of people use it. But like at the same time, I totally understand, because we've seen this a couple times before where Protoss has had like major redesigns, like when the mothership core got removed, and I feel like it takes a long time to adapt to those kind of changes.
Sure.
I don't know where I was really going with that. All right, what do we think about PVT 300cc change in particular here? Because that's something that is a pretty hot topic right now, and I think we've all probably got some pretty spicy opinions on this. I don't know. I think most people probably hate this change.
From the Protoss perspective?
Yeah. How do you feel about it?
Well, to give a light opinion, I very much dislike it. As I said previously, I feel like the Stargate option is, because of that, is completely dead. If they all in me, they can just like palm down and expand if they fail, and then act like nothing happened. And my main concern is that, like, if I deal damage to them, it feels like that I didn't do anything at all, since they can get their expand much cheaper than me, which is kind of silly. Like, if I kill 8 workers from the Terran with like a lucky Blink Stalker jump in, that should hurt him, but many times I feel like it doesn't hurt him at all. If I don't look at like for 2 seconds and the mine deletes 6 of my probes, then I feel like I'm like way behind, back to the Stone Age.
Yeah, I can definitely relate with that. I think like the mule alone is just such a crazy mechanic. Sorry, go ahead.
I think it's interesting because like along those lines, I just remember like so many different like casts for different games and stuff. I mean, this is more of a ZVT example, but like the same logic applies. Where it's like Zerg, we're all in Terran. Terran's like 2 base 3cc. They bring them down to like 10 workers. And it's like, well, yeah, but they have 3cc, so like they'll just come back and rebuild and like half the time win the game. And it's like, well, wait, what? And I feel like this kind of just exemplifies that and just makes it like even more so, because they'll just reach that point quicker, to the point where that, while beforehand wasn't as applicable to PVT, I feel like now it's that same type of situation where like, no, we can't just like kill like most of the workers. We like literally have to kill them. Otherwise,
Yeah.
it's that same type of effect in this matchup as well. So it's, and in a way, you could argue there's a good thing to that, but at the same time, it's like that. I'm pretty sure that's how the game is not supposed to work. So,
Yeah,
like,
it does
if you
feel
lose
weird.
all your workers, shouldn't you kind of just be? I mean, yeah, like if you just instantly counter all in and like, okay, kill, yeah, sure, that's one thing. But like outside of that rare scenario, it's like that should basically be a death sentence.
Yeah. There is something to be said for like different races are different, so the mule being just a Terran thing and it allowing them to bounce back from worker damage easier is not like a crazy mechanic to have, right? I never really had a problem with it. But then when we make CC's 300 minerals, it's like, are we over the line where it is a problem now? You know? Because like you can have mechanics like this that are really strong. People complain about recall all the time, for example. There's lots of people who really hate like any teleport excuse me, any like teleport mechanic in the game. It's like, you know, army mobility like that for a ground-based army. For some people that feels like it shouldn't be in the game, right? But I am of the opinion that you can have mechanics like this, and as long as it has like a long cooldown or there's a significant cost to it or something, it's fine. you know so same thing with mules. I think Terran being able to bounce back from worker damage, like, by itself, that mechanic is fine. For them to have an easier time to do that than the other races, right? The problem comes when it's like such a powerful strength that worker damage becomes meaningless completely. you know like, if I have to get significant worker damage for it to actually make a difference against Terran, no problem, in my opinion. But if it's like impossible for worker damage to affect Terran, that feels like BS. All right. I'm trying to move things along here, go a little bit fast today. How do we feel about PVZ? And I'm obviously curious what Nihed thinks mainly here. How do you feel about PVZ right now?
Right now in PvZ, I feel like it's very much Zerg favored or slightly Zerg favored in the top level as well, and in the ladder I feel like as well that it's Zerg favored because much of the Protoss stuff like got touched and then it nerfed as well, and then we kind of narrowed down the diversity of the Protoss to go into Skytos from the beginning. As well, I saw many Protoss going like to Stargate Void Ray, which just points back to the one of the worst metas of all time. In COVID, we had the same exact meta of Protoss going to Stargate Void Ray, but now it's much worse because the Zerg has much better economy and they can either bust you or just go get ahead, snowball down.
Or Queen Walk. I
Yeah, or
saw.
Queen Valk. But generally, I don't like because like right now, I feel like you don't really have that much option like before. Because before in 12 workers, at least like we had Archon drop, we had a Glaives build, we had like a free Oracle or 2 Oracle with Blink Stalkers. There was a point when Charge First was an option, and right now I feel like nothing really ground based can be an option for you. Obviously, you can make it work, but you get much ahead or much better situation-wise by just going into straight to Skytos or going to Stargate builds.
Yeah, that was actually something that I did want to bring up briefly. Just the fact that mothership builds are so popular right now. It feels a little bit strange, and I don't know, it's kind of interesting because it feels like the mothership, it got a bunch of buffs, and the mothership build was already kind of starting to take off a little bit, and then like because Protoss is under so much pressure right now with the new patch, like when you guys are you're struggling, it's like, well, now we got to hyper focus on our like most optimal win rate strategy, which is the mothership rush. So it feels like a lot of people are doing that right now.
which
And then
is
the
not.
sorry, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say that it's kind of silly because they many times say in the patch notes that they aim to remove like turtle, aim to like balance wise, like instead of going to Skytos and Mectaran or like camp at your base, we aim to like something else, but then we came back to the exactly same thing, which is I don't think we are heading to the right direction at all.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's another thing I wanted to bring up. So the change in the gateway mechanic, you were saying earlier, and I totally agree. Like, it feels like it kind of is encouraging the turtling into late game meta, because if you can't warp in remotely, and you're also like forced to, it's like you're forced to warp in continuously, or build continuously from the gateway, right? So then you have like more units at home, and you're like slowly building up this force at home before you move out, right? Rather than what was previously the meta, which is like the gateway explosion right before the timing, and then you warp in the army, right? So now it's like you have a much slower buildup. What feels super weird to me about this is like not only that we're encouraging turtle into late game, but it also like kind of eliminates that dynamic of Protoss having like core Robo and Stargate units that are like really expensive and take a long time to build, and like building up that core of your army slowly over time. And then you have like gateway units that kind of act as the meat shield for the more expensive units, right? So by making all the units produce using like a normal, production mechanic from the building, it kind of removes that dynamic, it feels like to me. So those two things feel kind of weird to me, and I'm kind of curious what your thoughts are on that.
I agree on most of it. Like, it's kind of like confusing to play Protoss because like right now you can like play the game with much fewer gateway counts, camp, like get up your bases. For example, in PvZ, either get like go into like Colossi builds, which you can like already camp on, like 3 or 4 bases, then go to Skytos or go immediately to Skytos. It's like feels weird for me to like be on these low gateway counts and then just camp. It doesn't really fit well like with what playstyles we had like a year ago, for an example. Like, I feel like the race didn't really meant for like turtling. I feel like it meant for like warping everywhere and like be active on the map, because like the late game for the Protoss side, I feel like in many of the matchups it's not really the dominating one. It's much more the weaker one, I feel like.
Interesting. Okay, that I'm gonna have to have you expand on a little bit. Because I totally have the opposite opinion on that. I feel like Protoss late game is crazy good.
Well, it depends on the matchup. Like in PvT, I'm all up for it that the Terran has a way better late game than Protoss. Like, no one gonna like explain it to me that the Ghost Liberator biocomp with Viking is not better than anything the Protoss has from the Robo or the Gateway. I feel like just the Range Liberator with the +2 attack or +3 with EMP just obliterate all your army on the ground.
Okay.
And if you go for Sky, many times I feel like in the late game situation, the Terran has already like 4 or 5 starports or even 3. They just get Mass Viking and then they just remove all your Carrier or Tempest.
Gotcha.
In PvZ, I feel like it's a double-edged sword. Obviously, I understand the Zerg side as well. Like, many like lower level players like playing against the mass carrier with a mothership, and then I build a corruptor or I build whatever units I could, and then I lost, and it's such a bad thing to have. But when like both players having spellcaster control, I feel like with the Infestor and the Viper, it's really hard to engage as a Protoss. Obviously, I have feedback, but like if the Zerg can do either the Dark Zone ability, sorry, I don't remember quite the Infestor new ability, which is the the microbial shroud. I call it Dark Swan Light. Like with
Yeah, it's the same
microbial
thing.
shroud, with microbial shroud,
Almost, but-
especially since it got buffed to 12 range, like you can bust in way much
Crazy.
areas. Like you place it down and the ultras just take care of all my
It is,
spellcasters.
yeah, it's really good. I've been watching a lot of Railgun's stream lately, and he's been a big lover of the Microbial Shroud plus Ultra push in the late game. Yeah, it's
So
pretty
good.
strong. Pretty strong.
It's pretty strong on the ground. I feel like nothing can beat good upgraded ultras. Maybe like 80 immortals, but then I have to make 80 immortals. And at the
Yeah.
same time, the parasitic bomb with the fungal is just like destroys every single air like one or twice. The weaker ones like Voider or Phoenix, I feel like it deletes in one spell rotation. Like the bigger ones, maybe like in 2 or 3. And also the Corruptor is very tanky.
The Corruptor is quite a unit. It's a very good unit. Yeah, I mean, ZBP, I've talked about this a lot. I think it's definitely, I don't know, it's an interesting dynamic because it feels like if the Zerg controls properly, aka Cyril, it's almost unbeatable in a way if they're, if they're at a head or like equal position, Because like you said, like with good spellcaster control, like Zerg has some pretty insane power in the late game. But like the thing that always makes it challenging is like, I don't know, it feels like there's like a micro imbalance there or something where like multiple spellcasters are required for Zerg, and it feels like just the High Templar is required for Protoss. But at the same time, it's like it also feels like, Protoss just doesn't have a lot of like high skill expression units that can do really fancy maneuvers like that in the late game and kind of take advantage of the position that they have, right? It feels a little bit more like an army being a movie is a double-edged sword because like there's nothing you can do additionally to control it better to make it perform better. You know what I mean? Like there's not a lot of carrier micro that you can do to make carriers more effective. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yes, I agree. Like the Protoss suffers very much from this because most of the late game army is like just you make the golden armada and then pray that somehow your opponent doesn't play like Serral, which is, I think, I never like that I should pray upon that my opponent plays worse than me. I think it's one of the worst things you can like do in a strategy game or in any kind of esport title.
Totally. I'm the same way. It's like whenever somebody tells me, this is a strategy that you should use or whatever, this tactic or whatever, and I'm breaking it down and I'm like, the only reason this works is because my opponent messed up. I pretty much just write off that strategy as not viable at that point. Because it's like, I mean, if they need to make a mistake for it to work, is it really an effective strategy? Like, that doesn't really make sense, What I think is, I don't know, I think the micro thing is kind of interesting because, there is like this weird interaction of, the Protoss trying to bait the Zerg player into like clumping up their Corruptors and then losing them to Archons or Storm and things like that. Or like the Void Ray interaction with, I always forget the name of this ability. Prismatic Alignment. Yeah.
Oh.
Like those interactions are interesting, but I don't know, yeah, it definitely feels like it's not the most captivating interaction when one side is a little bit like limited in their micro ability and the other side is like kind of required to micro like to an insane degree. I don't know. Like that dynamic kind of exists in ZVT for the whole matchup and it's fine there. So I don't know, maybe it's just the fact that it's like so extreme. I don't know, it's interesting cuz like as much as I complain about the late game, it's like I can't tell you how crazy it feels when like the Protoss isn't all together and like clumped up right. You know, they don't have their units positioned properly, and like I have a good surround with my corruptors, and I can just like one-shot the carriers, and like everything just dies, and it's like it's so one-sided. You know what I mean? Like, so I don't know. It feels like, because this is definitely something that like most Zergs have been complaining about, and I've even, you know, I've been on the side of Zergs who complain about, like, in the new patch, it's like they didn't fix anything about PvZ. Like, they just made Zerg like across the board better, but they didn't really like fix any of the issues in the matchup. I'm rambling a little bit, but feel free to jump in here. Either of you, if you have any thoughts on this.
I mean, my thought is that I have to agree on you. Like, whatever they did with these patches is that they didn't do anything at all. I feel like they didn't fix no core mechanics at all in all matchups. Like in PvT, we still see that the Protoss is going on 7 trillion bases, the Terran camps on 4 or 5 in a normal sense, and then like they clash, and either the Protoss wins or not. Like, I feel like we did nothing in PvT to fix the core issues, what both race doesn't like. Like, for an example, I doesn't like that the Terran can just be on 4 bases, meanwhile I'm controlling the whole map, and then I just cannot bust him. And I understand that their Terran side as well, that they cannot do anything, they cannot go on the map. Like, it's just such a obnoxious like matchup to play. And in Protoss versus Zerg, I understand as well, like in the last part, like in the 12 workers meta, I understood that like there is nothing to do. Like there was one build in most of the time, and then we had to stick for it. And then every time it just went into either an all-in state from the Zerg, or we go into a 20 or 40 minutes late game, which dragged upon who's having the better control.
Not a fan of the super long turtle stalemate metas we've been getting for quite a while now, it feels like. Yeah, it's kind of a shame that the patch is going the way it is, because you know, I think that a lot of the goals of the patch are admirable, but you know, the whole time I've been saying it feels like this is a sledgehammer when we need a scalpel. You know, we need like much more precision targeted changes to like specific things and specific interactions and things like that, rather than what we've been doing, which is just like this broad level like hammer. We're just gonna smash StarCraft and then rearrange the pieces. It's like, why? the game, like, it wasn't perfect, but it was still pretty damn good. You know? Yeah. All right. So you mentioned when I was talking to you on Discord, you mentioned that you wanted to talk about game states for Protoss in different matchups, and I'm gonna be honest, I wasn't exactly sure what you wanted to talk about there, so I'm hoping you can expand on that and share your thoughts on what you meant there.
I mean, the game state we kind of talked about, that like I feel like drowned in the matchups. Like, for example, in PvT, I only have sort of like 1 or 1.5 build order to practice upon, like for tournaments, and like I cannot really do anything tournament related build order in the ladder, because then it can be countered by every single thing, or it does nothing. Like, I feel like the game state for a Protoss is the least fun compared to every time era ever happened in StarCraft 2. Because right now, like, nothing works and works at the same time. Like, I have so few build orders what I can do. Like, right now, the go-to for Protoss is like I'm spamming like 1 or maximum 2 build orders on the ladder, and then I'm hoping for a better patch.
Interesting.
I definitely do get what you mean by that, because like Ace and I were kind of talking about it yesterday, and I kind of spent last night and this morning trying to watch some casts, and like, I mean, I feel like there definitely is always like a hive mind within races where it's like, oh yeah, here's the meta, here's the builds people play, but I do feel like it's even less now. Because like Ace was saying, it's like no one plays Robo against Zerg type of thing. Like it's all just like some gateway support into Stargate type of thing in that matchup specifically. And like what you were saying with PVZ earlier, and just kind of like how that matchup plays out. And like yeah, I feel like the Colossus buff helps, but like I mean, if Marauders still look at Colossus, they still just kind of explode. That's not even counting Vikings. So like it still kind of is. It is that way, unfortunately. And it didn't help because like I remember initially they were trying, oh, we're trying to expand and make more build orders available, make more aggressive options available with the 8 workers start. And it's like, at least from the pros perspective, it's like that didn't work. Just period.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it feels like it was not quite effective for all the races, but I think Protoss is definitely suffering the most from this, just because of like warpgate being changed like it was, you know. I mean, like I said earlier, like, you know, I've definitely heard from quite a few people that you still can do Robo Twilight builds, but you know, I have a hard time believing that they can still be as effective, you know, because it's like, I remember how these interactions played out before. It was kind of just you either like win super hard or it falls flat on its face. Rarely does it turn into a situation where you get like a little bit of damage and then it sort of turns into a normal macro game. Usually when you do like a prism timing, you know, either you win the game with it or you lose because, you know, it was scouted and they had the perfect response, you know. Because like, you know, basic StarCraft stuff, I'm sure, you know, most of the people watching know this, but like, you know, once you reach like probably like Masters 3, you know, people start being able to like actually play the game properly, meaning like their macro is not having like completely unforced errors in the first 5 minutes, and you're able to like execute an opening build order properly, things like that. And, you know, once you're able to do that and scout your opponent correctly, like adapting with the correct response to a build is like not that challenging, you know, when you're at that level. It's like, all right, cool, you know, so I just got to make sure to take my 2 gases and have exactly this worker count on my 3rd, and then I'll be able to hold it as long as I get my Roach Warren, you know. Like it's pretty simple to be able to do these things, right? So it feels like Robo Twilight builds have always sort of been in this weird state where they either are super meta because Zerg just can't stop it, like when Charge had like bonus +8 damage and it was super strong, you know, or they're in a state where it feels like Protosses are like, these are just terrible, everybody knows how to react to these builds, so we just have to open Stargate every game, you know. So it's like Protoss was already dealing with this problem, and then we just kind of like leaned super hard into it and said, okay, what if no Robo Twilight builds ever? And now it's just Stargate, you know? It feels like I don't know, it's probably a pretty shitty position for Protoss, and I imagine Protosses feel pretty crappy about that right now. Call me crazy, am I wrong?
No. No, I have to agree with you.
Yeah, I'm not sure what could really be done about that, is really the interesting question here. Because if we want to nerf Warpgate and like buff gateway production, you know, this is definitely a way to do it, but like, then what are we doing about the prism timing builds? Like, do we just never want those to exist in StarCraft 2 again? Or like, what are we talking about here, you know?
If that's the case, just make it so you can't warp in out of Warp Prism. I mean, that would almost be
Yeah,
better.
yeah.
Frick.
Yeah. It's kind
I
of,
mean, the way
I find it's half of what people don't like about Warpgate anyways. It's not that you can warp in out of Pylon, it's that you can warp in out of a Warp Prism, like, in the opponent's base.
Yeah.
And, like, I think that's the big issue.
I mean, what you could do with the Warp Prism is just simply make it that from the Warp Prism you warp in like from the old warp in like 11 seconds, I think, or 14.
Mhm.
Like if you make that, then the Warp Prism gonna be like less something like what they could whine about or like be angry about, because if like for it takes a warp in 14 seconds, then it really you cannot do anything about it.
Yeah, it's a
And
long
like the
time.
way that like the robo or the Stargate, not the Stargate because the Stargate exists in PvZ, not in PvT, but like what they could do is like buff a little bit more the robo units, because I feel like the gateway units are strong on their own, like maybe till the mid game, but on the late game I feel like they are so much weaker compared to the other two race. Like the Terran has like the bio with the ghost, with the +3, they are like packing a punch. Meanwhile, the Zerg has the adrenaline glands upgrade from the Hive, and the Cracklings are like having so much DPS. Many times I'm just like leaving 6 cannons at a base, and then 40 lings show up and they just chew right through it. Like the base just disappeared, never even existed.
Yeah, cracklings are really good. Yeah, and Protoss is like uniquely I mean, this is why Protoss has recall, you know, and shield batteries, I guess. You know, it's uniquely challenged by like multi-prong aggression, you know. It's very powerful versus Protoss. Let's see. So what else can we? Is there anything else that we really wanna address here? That we want to bring up? Anything you guys have on your mind here?
I mean, to this thing, what could be the most appreciated, I think, from every single Protoss player is that we revert the gateway change, and like make it that it was like happened like before, like it worked before. Like make it free, and then we are going from there. If the Protoss doesn't go well from that, then we just buff something, or like rework something, or even nerf the other race. Like we don't necessarily have to buff Protoss up to the throne. Like I'm not up to that we buff Protoss to the point where a one stalker kills a gazillion battle cruisers. It just, I think we should just make more fun and like more objectively better for the Protoss.
Okay. See that, and something that you said in the previous answer kind of has me thinking a little bit, because something that I've talked about a lot in the past was like, so I don't know if you remember this, but at the beginning of Legacy of the Void, Protoss, the reputation that Protoss had was that it was sort of a gimmicky race, that it was like a gimmicky spellcaster ability-based race, and it was kind of glued together by gimmicks. It was what people were saying, right? And at the time, I was new to the game, so it's like, you know, I was kind of memeing along with that, and I'm like, haha, Protoss the gimmick race, right? But like, as Protoss has been adjusted over time, I'm starting to wonder if maybe, like, you know, if maybe that was actually a better version of Protoss in a lot of ways. And I'll give you a couple examples of what I mean. I think, like, Immortal Barrier is probably a good example. Like, because that used to be an activated ability, and it was stronger, you know? So it's like having manual control over something, but having it be a stronger ability, rather than having it be a weaker ability that's auto-cast, right? Like, maybe those kind of changes are the kind of things that Protoss needs. Because like we were talking about with, like, skill expression in the late game, you know, that's the kind of stuff that you would need to give more skill expression. You know, remove a little bit of core power, and then add extra power as an ability that you can use, like, tactically in the moment that you need it, right? Like, I feel like that kind of stuff might be like the kind of direction that would help Protoss a little bit more. I don't know. Do you guys agree?
I mean, halfly I agree, but like the problem is many of the Protoss spells, like in the upcoming year, like got gutted or nerfed to the ground. One of the main examples is Storm and the Disruptor Purification Nova. Both of the spells, like a couple of years ago, were much more respectfully better and the used spell in all of the matchups. Like,
Yeah.
for example, okay, Storm maybe not, because in PvP we never kind of used it. But the Disruptor had its own place in PvZ as well. Like, there was the Zone build where you went like a Glaive, and Glaive's kind of build with free gates, and then baited the Zerg into like going roaches, and then you went followed up with a Disruptor drop. It had its place, smally, but like it had more variety than today compared. And then like they reworked the Disruptor that they got at the damage, but then they buffed up, I think, the build time. I don't remember that much what did they change after the damage nerf, but then it just got demoted into only the PvP matchup. Like
Right.
after they nerfed the damage, I didn't really see that often, but now we use it much more times because of the ghost HP again got changed. But it's like very, how should I say, the Disruptor is very in an interesting state because it depending on how many times do they change the ghost, which I don't really like. That one of my unit which should like hold of the Terran is depending on did they change the ghost like 27 or the 28th time. And the Storm like got like nerfed very much. I don't think that spell like differed what it was. Like in the first time when it was like 120 damage over 6 seconds, I was like saying that okay, it was fine, like it was a zoning tool, but like you couldn't really stand in it. Or the first iteration when it was like 80 damage, I liked the both of the iterations because like it plays down and then it was like a zone that you shouldn't go. And what we did right now is that it's 100 damage for 6 seconds, and it's like a pool of zone which can be healed like momentarily. Like many times I feel like Bio can just pass through it and then kill me, or even Zerg army just goes through 4 or 5 storms and then evaporates my army.
Yeah, I mean, I remember like when that change first happened and we saw like a bunch of Zergs just like rolling Hydroling Bane like directly through the storm, just not caring. I think that I've talked about this before, but like I enjoy, like, I think StarCraft should be exciting, you know, and I kind of roll my eyes when people complain about frustrating game-ending moments, because it's like you need the game to punish you hard for your mistakes in order for it to feel rewarding when you don't make those mistakes, you know? So to me, like Storm, when it was 80 damage and just like super like concentrated damage, you know, it would just evaporate armies if you were clumped up too much and you got hit with a storm. And to me, like, that just felt right, you know? And Storm, like, it being restricted to just a zoning spell, because like you could use it as a zoning spell before, it wasn't as effective as it is now as zoning, right? But like you could still do that as a zoning spell before. So the fact that it's only a zoning spell now feels a little bit weird to me, and I don't really like it. It just feels like a more boring version of the spell, you know? Like whether or not it's stronger or weaker, like from a game design perspective, I just think it's less exciting and less interesting, so I prefer the old one, you know? Similar with disruptors, like I don't really have a super strong opinion on like which exact version of the disruptor I liked the best, but I like it when disruptors are able to one-shot certain things and are able to be effective. For me, I think, you know, being a slightly biased Zerg, you know, my line is probably whether or not they one-shot roaches. You know, but that's just how I feel about that there. Like, in general, I feel like, you know, the disruptor should be an exciting unit, you know? And this is kind of what I meant with, like, Protoss, I think, would benefit more from having, like, strong, gimmicky, quote-unquote, spells that are, you know, powerful but have to be manually activated and used, like, you know, carefully. I think that would make, you know, the race more interesting to play, more interesting to watch. You know, I think it's just more interesting to have it with that design philosophy.
I definitely get what you mean by that, and I mean, yeah, I'm a Protoss, but I also agree, especially because like Protoss may have like individual units that are tough, but like the army itself feels so fragile, and not in the way where like Bio is a glass cannon, but like in a way of like, oh god, you got on my army just disappeared.
Yeah.
But I don't have like the DPS to back it up. It's like it's supposed to be the splash, it's supposed to be the spells, and like a few key units. And it's like, well, I keep losing these things. Like if Storm can't keep Bio or Hydrobane away, if Disruptor can't like stop the ball of roaches, if Colossus aren't able to like actually kind of do that long range splash damage it's supposed to, then it's like, what am I supposed to do? No one likes force fields, so you don't want Protoss to just go back to that. So I mean, like, how do I be able to like engage and feel like I can properly fight an army when it's even? Because I feel like if it's even, I feel like the Protoss army is usually at a disadvantage, which might feel weird to say, but like that's at least what it feels like.
You mean like minus the like spells and abilities? Is that what you're saying?
Like even with the spells and abilities, because it feels like if I can't like hold that army back to use what those key tools that you have, then the army can just like pounce on you and just kind of just like smash the army.
Interesting.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I kind of get what you're saying. I'm just trying to. I mean, I'm biased Zerg grappling with the but cost for cost, your units are better thing in my head. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, well, that's what I mean. Like individually, yes, cost for cost. Like the Immortal's gonna slaughter whatever. Like cost for cost. Like if you have perfect blink micro, yeah, Stalkers are insane and stuff. But like when you get like the big army versus big army clash, it a lot of time feels like if I don't have something in my advantage as a Protoss, my army feels like it's not going to win a fight.
Gotcha. That I understand a bit more because yeah, like I would totally agree that like fights against Protoss feel they're usually super one-sided either way. Like either
Yes.
the Protoss gets crushed or they obliterate everything and lose nothing. You know?
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like TVZ for example, like even fights versus mech feel less one-sided than fights versus Protoss a lot of times. Sometimes it's even worse. Like if it's just mass tank, that can swing pretty hard in either direction. But yeah, I don't know. I think like that is sort of interesting that Protoss is, and maybe it has to do with like the micro ability kind of thing, because Protoss units are like, outside of like the Stalker with Blink, the units are generally like slower move speed and more like you're encouraged to deathball and just be in a clump.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Oh,
like
for sure,
that. Yeah. I think that like I guess I'm just trying to say like I think that feeds into the problem of like fights against Protoss feeling super one-sided either way.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I'm curious if he feels or if it's almost okay.
Yeah. No. If Nihed has anything to add to that, please do.
No, I agree with most of the takes, and I kind of said what I wanted about these stuffs. Like Protoss suffers, very much with the core units. Suffers very much that they are meant to be A moved, which is not really great in this game. Because in Brood War, many of the units like designed that you just press A move and then adios. But now I feel like in this meta and like era, I don't think like it's good to have like an A move type of comp designed only for the race. Because like when people start to play better, you just gonna lose much more because you cannot do as much as the other player are.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think like the what was that making me think of? Like for example, with Zerg, a lot of times like we'll mix lings into our army because we can get like little wraparounds and surrounds and things like that. And like our units will sort of naturally like form clumps based off of like their different ranges and things like that, and that kind of allows us to do like various micro tricks where we'll, you know, surround a unit or catch this clump of units here and there, and like Protoss has less opportunities to do that kind of stuff because their units just generally stay in a clump, and the zealots like charges auto cast and it is not microable. You know, so like they just sort of go, you know. It feels like it has less opportunities for Protoss to like through micro control make interesting things in the engagement happen. So as a result, Protoss by nature is more of an A move race. That's not exactly healthy for the game. Well, yeah, I think we've chatted quite a bit here, and I think we've covered a lot of really great stuff. And I want to thank Nihed once again for being on the show. This is awesome, and I really appreciate hearing your thoughts.
I appreciate the invite.
Yeah, of course. And unless we have anything else, I think we can end the show here, and we will catch everybody next week. And hopefully we'll have some more changes by then, and we'll be able to talk about those changes. I think we're all fingers crossed hoping for some more patches here, because this doesn't feel like it.
Wait, have you saying that like you heard something, or is that just you saying I hope that?
No,
happens?
that's just me hoping. Yeah, it's just me hoping.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I can accept that hoping, because right now what the internal / Blizzard are doing is that they are randomly releasing every 2 weeks a patch, which is kind of interesting, and as well they don't really like say anything about like why did we do that or why it was implemented that way, because I would be very interested what made everyone on their head agree on that we should change the CC to 300 mineral.
For real.
Yeah. I think everybody's wondering that.
Or like why are we making Protoss going into the Brood War / only gateway style? Like I would be very much interested what are their thoughts about it, because like I don't wanna really flame Blizzard, but like I don't think they have thought at all. Like these changes doesn't really make sense at all, because they didn't do it in the beginning of the Legacy of the Void. Like we do this gateway type of change, or like this drastic change 10 years after the Legacy of the Void released, when like the game already suffers from like very like not so much like player count, and then we are making drastic changes, and then like many players leaving the game because we are making 8 workers, or we are changing this stuff about the race. Like it's generally unfun to play with all 3 races, because like you don't know what to expect. Like I can surely imagine a universe wherein next week we're gonna get another balance patch. We are making the CC back to 400 minerals, but then we are making the Nexus 300 minerals because many Protoss players were whining about it. But then that's again we are back to square one, that it doesn't make any sense, and then it just fucks up the balance.
Yeah. I think we're all on the same page there. You know, I think more communication from Blizzard would be very nice, because yeah, it's like we can speculate all day about why they're doing these changes, but unless they tell us, yeah, we have no idea. Yeah, I would totally agree with that. All right, well, I think this is a good place to end the show. Once again, you know, I really want to thank you again, Nihed, for being on the show. This is great, and thank you again, Brock, as well, for joining us. As always, this is awesome. And thank you to everybody watching in chat and on YouTube in the future. Really appreciate all you guys. And let us know in the comments and stuff if you feel like we missed anything, or if there's anybody who you think we should have on the show in the future. That'd be great. Yeah, I think that'll be it for now, and we will catch you all next week. See you next time, everybody.